Today we're looking at the Scalper Deriv Expert Advisor, and this one caught my attention as it's been on the marketplace for quite literally years by now, since August of 2023. And I've seen it like pop up on the first page quite a few times, kind of since my time in all things expert advisors. So I'm curious to see like what makes it different than many other bots in the marketplace, and what's unique about it. This video is sponsored by our free Golden Time Bomb Expert Advisor. Take your trading to the next level through automating the London breakout and the opening range breakout. Click the link in the description to download the EA completely for free. And essentially here we can see that he's saying that it's like clearly a scalper and it's for people who like to scalp and make the most out of their capital, and that it can trade a variety of forex pairs as well as synthetic indices. And I've always found it interesting that people would trade a synthetic index because like frankly, I'm sure the broker is setting it up in such a way where the edge is 100% in their favor. So trading a synthetic index is almost like going to a slot machine. And I've always been a bit curious as to maybe I'm missing something, but I can't imagine that they would set up any sort of synthetic thing that there's any degree of inefficiency in it which you can capitalize on. But alas, maybe I'm missing something. So I find it interesting and kind of odd that he's touching upon that. And there's a few different elements here that like there's different input parameters like factor TP, factor A, and not a ton of information on the strategy. It does look grid-esque, seeing as we are having detachments from the balance line of the equity line. So most likely running some sort of grid martingale style system. And if we pop over to his sales page here, he's telling us that we should use a 1 minute open, high, low, close. And there's also a max drawdown filter. So this goes to show that like most grid martingales, you want to have something where you can do an equity stop loss. And if the equity goes below, let's say 5%, 10%, you just close all the positions. So yeah, it looks like a pretty generic grid martingale style system. So if we go out and run ourselves a back test here, we can see that lo and behold, it is very much a grid. And I ran it here in the Euro US dollar. And yeah, like clearly it's a grid martingale. And the same thing here. It's actually being very gritty. It's opening up many positions and holding it for an extremely long time. Something to be aware of, that like many people don't like to hold positions for an overly long period of time when in a pretty deep drawdown. And if we go into the actual back test and look at scaling, we can see that he is scaling, and he is scaling reasonably aggressively too. Like here it goes from like 1 lot to 5 lot to 9 lot to 8 lots. Like there is some pretty hefty scaling happening. And we're also just not seeing it make a ton of trades. So perhaps it's more time frame specific. Let me go back to the page here to see if perhaps he's mentioning on what time frame you should run it on. He doesn't, I don't think he's mentioning it here unless I'm missing something. But let's, for instance, try this on the M5. That might be giving us a better indication as to what exactly he's doing. Yeah, this looks a little bit better. So maybe it is time frame specific. So one thing to note is that like with any sort of grid martingale system, you have to be aware that it can blow up, or statistically over a sufficient, it looks exactly the same. Over sufficient samples, it will eventually blow up. You have to be very mindful of that. But there are some better ones out there that use equity stop losses and that are used intelligently. This one doesn't seem to be anything particularly special. He doesn't have a live signal either, so probably there's better options in the marketplace than this. For instance, I think the AIQ is a very sophisticated grid style system, which uses artificial intelligence, and some of my clients also use that and are rather pleased with it. So shout out to Brandon. There's also some other ones like Responsible Forex Trading. Ryan has some very good ones too from what I hear from other clients of mine. I have many clients, and I personally don't like selling this type of system. But I have clients who do like using the style of system as well. So they tell me when they find good ones. This particular one isn't great. Like for $400, you're just getting a pretty generic grid system. You can probably use like Dark Venus or Dark Algo, which are either free or at a nominal cost. So yeah, it's just overpriced for what it is. I don't see anything particularly special about it. And here we can see that like you can cap the number of levels. There's a news filter. There's a time filter. Nothing too crazy. The factors are most likely some element of either grid size or perhaps even something to do with an indicator setting, but nothing too crazy there. Maybe for our final one here, we can run ourselves a visual back test to see like maybe certain indicators are being used. But making this type of system, there's no, most likely he hard-coded some form of indicator. Like making a martingale style system is usually the foundation is a mean reversion indicator, be it an oscillator, a Bollinger Band, because naturally, like I'll just pause this, like grid systems work on the premise of mean reversion. You take an initial buy, and as long as price goes down, you start opening more and more positions kind of in a staggered grid level with the hope that eventually it turns and they all close at the same spot. So therefore, your initial trigger should typically be also a mean reversion entry. And mean reversion entries are usually oscillator or Bollinger Band based, just because that's the easiest way to code them. And many people like to do that because it's pretty straightforward. You can just put a Bollinger Band in and say like, hey, every X pips open a grid. And it's not exactly rocket science. It's pretty easy to make something like this. So to conclude, not seeing anything crazy innovative here. It's a bit overpriced for what it is. There's better options in the market. I think it's just maybe people try kind of whatever on the market, and it's been around for a while, so people are more inclined to trust it. But I do think that there are definitely better options out there. Guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Leave me a comment if I'm missing something, or if you've had any interesting experiences with this that I should be aware of. Take care.